Hey, have you heard of a movie called Weekend at Burnies? Have you? Well, I think I may have found the historical inspiration for that movie. Sajjar al Durr. What a woman! Sajjar was born in Arabia, in Egypt, Turkey, maybe Armenia. Okay, it's hard to tell where she is from. Nevertheless, she ended up in Egypt as a concubine of the last Ayyubid Sultan of Egypt, a man by the name of Saleh Ayyub. We can assume that she arrived in Egypt as a child slave and then rose up the ranks through hard work, deal making, and sexy time. Sajjar eventually made her way to the top and also had a kid with the Sultan. I'm feeling a bit of a Cleopatra vibe going on here. But saying that...
Then, everything changed when the Fire Nation attacked.
If it could only be true. Sajjar's life changed when Louis XI, the King of France, came to the shores of Egypt, shouting something about a crusade of some kind.
The King of Jerusalem!
I think a bit of context is in order. Louis wanted to make up for last and past crusades, but he was not getting much luck in finding help for this crusade. First he tried to enlist the help of the papacy, but they were like,
All of you!
Daddy, chill.
and so after that he asked Hungary, and they said, "Where you been? Where were you when I needed help?" So Louis XI awkwardly slipped away. And finally, he tried the Norwegians, but they were like,
Wait a minute! Who are you?
and so with that, Louis came to the shores of Egypt, hoping to use Egypt as a springboard to get into the Holy Land. But one thing Louis did not take into account was the fighting power of the Mamluks, the warrior slave class of Egypt.
You underestimate my power!
Let's get back to Sajjar. While the French had entered Egypt, Sultan Saleh conveniently kicked the bucket. What do you think she did? A. Surrender. B. Give temporary control to the military until the heir came back. C. Does a weekend in Burnies. If you pick C, that is correct. This is a testament of her badassery. The way that she accomplishes this feat is by calling the commander-in-chief into the room where the Sultan had just died and said to him, "I have a bunch of these blank orders. I'll fill them in and you carry out the orders." And no one says anything about the king being dead. And by some miracle, everyone agreed. She then proceeded to curb stomp the French by fighting tooth and nail, thus defeating the French so badly that around 80% of the French men were dead and King Louis himself was captured. This definitely hit the ego of Louis. Not only was he defeated by a Muslim, but a woman on top of that. Take note, before you start a war, don't start by talking mad smack before you start fighting.
I don't want
Smash
to
me,
talk.
mate!
I
Smash me!
don't want. I
Yeah,
don't wanna
smash
talk.
me!
So after that thorough thrashing by the Mamluks, they finally agreed after 3 months to send the king back. You might be thinking there must have been some condition. Oh, it was definitely a condition on the French. The Sajjar herself demanded 400,000 gold coins. I repeat, 400,000 gold coins. This equates to 30% of France's GDP. Even today, that is a staggering amount of money. But the French were not in the position to negotiate, but they agreed nonetheless. During those 3 months, the French were going back and forth and went to get their king. They did not take the defeat very well.
Get this shit off me! Get this beta shit off me!
Here's a list of things that the French did on the way to collect their king. Throwing priests into rivers, setting things on fire, writing a ton of emo poetry. Some even gave up entirely and then converted to Islam. After the king of France was sent back, the true heir came back from Anatolia, and his name was Dhurr Shah, but he was useless as a hedgehog in a condom factory. After a while, he came into power. His first act was to purge everyone who disagreed with him, and then proceeded to replace all the competent men of government with his own boys, who did not know diddly squit about government. Nepotism at its best. All this that he was doing it whilst piss drunk in public. Think about that. In a Muslim land, he was piss drunk everywhere. Sajjar only could tolerate so much until he, Dhurr Shah, made his biggest mistake of his life when he tried to go after Sajjar. Big mistake, Dhurr Shah. She was not going to let this slide. She had the support of the military. And to settle things quickly, she ordered the military to kill Dhurr Shah. But Dhurr Shah would not go down so easily. I kid you not, this is how he was killed. First, they stabbed him, and then he fled to a nearby tower. And then they proceeded to set the tower on fire. And so he did the most logical thing after that. He did a goddamn leap of faith off the tower, and he ran to the river, all whilst being hit by multiple arrows. And then once he got to the river, he was gutted with a goddamn spear, yet he still lived. Damn, are you sure you're not the Black Knight?
Scratch? A scratch? Your arm's off. No, it isn't. Well, what's that then?
Finally, they got him when the commanders of the army hacked him, literally hacked him to pieces in the river. After that bloody affair, she took a page from Cleopatra's own book and claimed herself to be High Sultan. This has never been seen in the Muslim world ever throughout its history. This was no temporary measure by no means. She went full on, from minting her own coins and leading the very public Friday prayers. The response of the rest of the Muslim world was from to anger. Unfortunately, she could not say.
Fuckers hate us because they ain't us.
They hate us because we ain't us?
But to calm the haters, she married a man called Aybek, who was the accountant of the old king. But unfortunate for him, he had the charisma of a wet sock. Nobody really liked him in Egypt, but he knew. Also, he knew that he was a cog in Sajjar's machine. So to get out of it, he decided to get married again to a more powerful and prominent family in the aristocracy. Sajjar did not take this marriage very well, and she took another page from the book of Cleopatra and decided to kill him in the most interesting way possible. She got a slave to strangle him whilst he was taking a bath, while she was punching him in the face and rubbing soap in his eyes whilst he was dying. Aybek, the only thing I could say to you is...
That's rough, buddy.
The murder of Aybek was the final nail in Sajjar's coffin. When people found out, the slaves of the palace killed her by hitting her with shoe clogs until she died. and to add insult to injury, they threw her body into the goddamn street naked. Thus the story of Sajjar comes to an end. Some say she was a force of good, while others say evil. But whatever the case, the actions she did made a dynasty that lasted for centuries.